on Storyboard, New Year sets in. Joseph George, Group Chairman and CEO, India, and Regional President, South and Southeast Asia, Mullen Lowe Lintas Group, and Kunal Jeswani, Chief Executive Officer, Ogilvy India, speak to us about how the year 2017 is looking for the advertising industry, and together they disclose the predictions for the year. And a student director, Eugene Merher, crafts a beautiful film for Adidas. What's this film all about? We find out in this week's notice board. Hello and welcome to Storyboard. This is Shibani Gharat and here is wishing you all a very happy new year. It is 1 week into the new year and many are making their own predictions for the year by analyzing the state of affairs in India and around the world. Cautiously optimistic is what 2017 is going to be like, predicts Joseph George, Group Chairman and CEO, India, and Regional President, South and Southeast Asia, Mullen Lowe Lintas Group, whereas Kunal Jeswani, Chief Executive Officer, Ogilvy India, feels that it will be a tough year, and tough years give you opportunities that good years don't. So what will make things challenging for ad agencies this year? We find out as Joe and Kunal speak to Storyboard editor Anant Rangaswamy. Let's hear the conversation.
Well, thank you for talking to us and Happy New Year to both of you.
To you too, Anant. So, hope it is happy for all of us.
I hope so, which is why we are having this conversation today. So to begin with, Joseph, what do you see in 2017? Is it a good year, bad year, ugly year? What do you see? Not for your agency, but for the creative agency business.
So I'm going to use a cliche and say cautiously optimistic. My suspicion is that I think people are going to wait and watch for the first 2 quarters of the calendar year, probably.
Right.
I think the full impact of the demonetization plus the budget. So I think people are going to wait and watch. So therefore the immediate impact therefore is that people may not front load their costs in terms of investments.
Right.
And therefore that probably then may have a cyclical effect in terms of so you don't invest and therefore.
Right.
So all that. So I think and what I've told you in my international management, I said, listen, I mean these are my projections for next year, but don't be too surprised if I change that. Come May, June. So,
Kunal, what about yours?
I think it's going to be a tough year.
Right.
But I think tough years give you opportunities that you don't have in great years. Right? It gives you opportunities to make choices early in the year, decide what your priorities are, and go after the stuff that you think can pull you through the year. Right? But I also have a sense that it's going to improve. That's my sense.
Right. No, is that sense built into your projections to your head office?
No.
Right.
So projections, the whole budgeting cycle is always cautious, right? And we look at it quarter on quarter, right? Like most businesses now, we have the opportunity to relocate it every quarter. Right? So we start off conservative and we take it from there. Right? But when I say conservative, I'm being gentle. Right? It's tough.
Right.
It's a tough start to the year. The first quarter is not looking good, and when the first quarter doesn't look good, you need to make corrections now. Right? And I think that's just about choices. I think it's the right time for it.
Yeah, sure. Joseph used that phrase. You don't front load your costs.
Yeah.
So what is the implication of not front-loading costs to you, to the agency business? Start with you, Joe. What does it mean to the average employee of an agency?
2-3 areas of obvious investments that people would typically tend to look at, especially first quarter. And whenever I say first quarter, I mean calendar year because we follow the calendar year. So clearly, one is of course talent. So that's something that unless you have specific needs, specific specialized talent, or specific clients who sort of come on board. Unless those things specifically happen, I don't think people are going to venture out and make huge investments in talent.
Now, let me make that simple for my viewer.
Yeah.
What is, are we talking tough year for increments, tough year for bonuses? Are we saying that so that, you're talking like an economist.
No, so our bonuses, in fact, is a reflection of what we did in 2016.
Right.
Which thankfully we've done well.
Right.
So I think we've done decent double-digit growths,
right,
both top line and bottom line. So I think it's incumbent therefore on the organization to reward our people for having done that.
So what happened in 2017?
Yeah, so exactly. So thankfully our bonuses happen on the back of an end of a calendar year. So certainly bonuses are going to be given out in the first quarter itself. When it comes to increments, we will wait and watch how the first quarter pans out. It's not looking great, but it's not looking terrible, I must say. Yeah. But like
remember this on camera here, Joe. You know, somebody can walk up to you tomorrow and say you said this on Storyboard.
Yeah, I know. So that's fine. I'm willing to put my head out on that. But like I said, I want to evaluate everything come May, June. And then, like what Kunal was saying, I think most networks allow you for revisions. And that's an offer I will take gladly.
So again, in A for Apple terms, what does it mean for people who work for agencies?
So, okay, look, our increments happened in December, so we're done, right? For 2016 is over. I'm not even going to think about 2017, you know, till I hit September, October next year, right? That's when we look at what we do with increments. But I think it's a tough market, and you know, if anyone in my organization thinks that things are hunky-dory and everything's going to be fantastic and increments are going to be great if we just continue doing what we're doing, I don't think that's true. I think there are choices and changes that the organization needs to make, and that individuals need to make as well. Each of us needs to find you know, a degree of relevance as stuff changes.
So what you're saying, again, you're being like Joe. What you're saying is that if you don't deliver, you're out, kind of thing. Or you're under pressure. Is that what you're saying? And that's going to be across the agency business this year? I'm not talking about Lowe and in your sense that in the agency business, this is going to be perform or perish.
No, certainly. I think there is, undoubtedly going to be pressure on the financial profile of every agency in this industry. And if nothing, I think people have been primed to go in expecting the worst. And I think mature organizations, when you have more people in the senior management who are aware of what's going on and who genuinely feel that they have stake in the organization, I think embrace the reality a little more easier than the rest. So I think it's, like I said, I think it's a duty and responsibility of every organization head to make sure that the reality is percolated down with no frills and give it as is, pretty much like what Kunal was saying.
So Kunal and Joe, I'll ask both of you. Start with you, Kunal. What do you think are going to be the focus area for the marketer this year? Because the marketer, say if we went back 1 year ago, he was like, you know, Mr. Moneybags. He just opened his purse, and what is going to happen now?
I think for any marketer today, they're going to look at what point is consumption going to improve, at what point are people going to start buying a little more freely. It's linked to at what point will people have access to cash more freely at a very simplistic level, but it's true. It's also linked to consumer sentiment from the point of view of, you know, who's watching what I buy, and you know, how much can I buy freely without thinking of, you know, somebody coming and asking me, how do you manage to buy all of this stuff? Where did the money come from? So I think that degree of consumer sentiment is something they're all going to watch for. But you know, for most marketers, I don't think it's a choice they can make for too long to just wait. You know,
you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you know, it's again, it's a tough choice they have to make. But I don't see it as something they can cop out of. You know, sooner or later, and sooner more than later, they're going to have to spend. If you don't spend, you're not selling. It's as simple as that.
You agree with that, Joe?
Yeah. See, I'm saying typically to India, this is a domestic consumption-led economy, right? So if there is no consumption, then there is no growth in the economy. Our exports have pretty much been flat for quite some time, or growing marginally. And therefore, unless marketers are seeing increase in consumption, and one of the issues that we are facing across the board, especially FMCG, is downgrade. So consumers are downgrading, both in terms of brands and also reducing consumption on certain categories. Now, those are things that unless you see a change, marketers are going to be a little reticent about wanting to spend and having to spend. So, and the other point I think what again Kunal briefly touched upon is measurability. I think clients are getting extremely particular about measuring everything that they do, and therefore any incremental money that is being spent, I think is going to come on the back of hardcore measurable data.
Right.
So it's not going to be, okay, this is the budget for the year, or this is what I'm going to spend in the next 2-3 quarters. I think they will wait, watch, see the metrics, see if the movement on the metrics is satisfactory, and then they will keep pumping in money in batches.
Okay. Joe, I'll ask you, will this also impact the quality of briefs? For example, will clients ask for more hardworking advertising as opposed to, shall we say, pretty advertising or humorous advertising, or which in a sort of growth market we've enjoyed the luxury of.
Right.
You didn't really have to worry too much about how much is, it's more FE and less can. Are you going to see that?
So that's a conversation I'm not going to be drawn into, because I think for too long this has been this spacious debate between creativity and effectiveness, and at least at
we know
we generally believe that if it's not creative, it's not going to be effective. Anyway, so that aside, I think you're absolutely right. I think clients are going to expect and demand that everything that is put out actually works in the marketplace. So will they therefore then prescribe the type of advertising that is required? I don't think so.
Right.
I think clients are mature enough.
Right.
They also understand how advertising now works, or how communication works. So I think they will leave it to the agencies. But to go back to your first point, I think they will be extremely keen that anything that is put out results into some metric movement.
We'll get to see a lot of impact on advertising industry this year. It is time for us to take a short break. When we return, this conversation will continue as we talk shop with Joseph George and Kunal Jeswani. Also on the other side of this break, we have a film for Adidas that is beautifully crafted by a student director and will make you stand up and cheer. But the irony is that the brand has no role to play in its making. What's this film all about? We find out in this week's notice board. You don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.